What's up, everybody, and welcome to a new Outer Coincidence. I'm here with Robbie, and we gonna chat about some stuff that be going on in the world here, and specifically, I don't know. You let me know about this No Kings thing that's going on for the weekend. What did you dig up on that? Where are you started on that?
Well, the No Kings thing is part of a movement that was supposedly started by a Reddit user, anonymous Reddit user at that. And they had the 50-51 movement, and his movement was 50 states, 50 protests, one voice or one movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thing about it is that supposedly this guy out of the blue who apparently has no email or no IP address or anything because he just has no digital footprint, but yet he's able to start this movement on Reddit. And within 3 days of him starting the movement on Reddit, or shortly thereafter, 3 to 5 days, he was picked up by this other group that had run with the Bernie Sanders campaign, and I don't have it in front of me, so I don't remember there's so many of them. I don't have the name of it on the top of my head, but it then got colloquially renamed to the No Kings movement. Of course, they claim that there's no funding of any kind, that it's decentralized, and that it's just a grassroots movement. But that's not true, because they have a nokings.org website that you can go to. And this website has all of this nationwide organization in every state, multiple cities, where they have these supposed protests to protest the current president administration, supposedly against the ICE raids. But it's morphed into this thing where it's like, well, this is the most corrupt administration in history, and they're setting themselves up as oligarchs, and we rise together on the 14th.
Apparently, this is the map that's on their website right now.
Right.
I guess these are all planned events.
Yeah, they're all planned events, and most of them are in front of courthouses or police departments or federal buildings or campuses. If you look at the one in Alabama, where we are, there's one at the University of Huntsville. There's one at Tuscaloosa. There's one at Toomer's Corner
Campus
at Auburn.
805. That's at the brewery there in Huntsville.
Right. And then the other ones are in places like in front of the federal building or something like that. So now that's just in our little small neck of the woods. We don't really have to worry, I don't think, in our area about it getting too unruly or out of hand, because the locals are not going to put up with it. You know, they're back when we had during the COVID thing, you know, when they were running their protest ramshod, they planned one for my town, and they sent scouts into the town, you know, to scout out areas to march and to do all this stuff. And before the scouts even got out, they had the locals surrounding them in pickup trucks and saying, just try it, you know. And needless to say, there was no protest in my town. But anyway, right now, they've already had, now associated with this very thing that you got pulled up here, they've had multiple riots in multiple cities, and the media is gaslighting everybody, telling them that either it's not happening or it's all peaceful, you know. It's a peaceful protest where people are having fun watching cars and buildings burn. And that was a quote by the media. So if you have a peaceful protest where people are just having fun watching buildings and cars burn, I mean, what kind of person do you have to be to believe that that is an okay thing? Hey, let's go downtown and carry our kids to this nice little event where buildings and cars are burning down. And I've already seen multiple things where they tried to push on X and Reddit and other stuff where, the police and the military are firebombing and tear gassing these poor people. And this kid, they show this kid in a in a stroller, got tear gassed, by the police. My question is, if you got a group of people burning cars, busting glass, looting, and throwing bricks at people, why do you have your child there again?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just curious. Are you trying to instill good values in your 3-year-old or 2-year-old by bringing them to a riot?
So whatever cause, that these guys are trying to pull off, like, I don't think the optics are that good if you're going to be destroying property.
Terrible, because what they're trying to do is they're defending. It started out in LA, and they had an ICE raid in LA where the police had arrested a number of illegal immigrants, and they all had rap sheets. They were there for a variety of things. The R word. They were there for assault. They were there for robbery. Just a whole host of things. And ICE had waited outside because they wouldn't turn them over. They went to arrest the things, and then, oh my God, they're arresting these peaceful citizens. And then so you had the protest then started in earnest in front of the federal building. They sent the police down there to defend it, and they were throwing rocks and stuff at them. And at one point, the police were under a bridge with these protesters throwing Molotov cocktails and rocks and stuff at them. And there's some confusion there because they don't know. It seems like there's some kind of a compartmentalization inside the department itself, because on one hand, the police were not letting them leave the bridge, and on the other hand, other police were trapped under the bridge. It was really stupid. And it looked to me, you could look at it real quick and the optics of it. It looked like there was this massive thing going on, but as soon as you pan around, you can see that it's all isolated in this one. The military would call it a kill box. It was an underpass where it was concreted on both sides, and then you had a bridge. And they started down at the bottom and got the police down there. And then they came in on top of the bridge and started throwing stuff at the police after they got them trapped up in this spot. So there's a multitude of different things going on with different optics. And the media, by and large, is trying to gaslight everybody into saying that this is all normal, par for the course. And then when the images started coming out of cars burning and everything like that, they either said it was fake or, like Brian Stelter said, well, look, these images are not relevant. They're hours old, and it's only happening with 1% of the population. What's the problem here?
Yeah.
Now, it would be okay. California is known for this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then later on, you had the governor come out with this tough man act where he's on MSNBC saying, you want to arrest somebody, come and get me, tough guy, and all this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, that was
yeah. And then you had the mayor of of LA, the woman mayor, I can't think of her name off the top of my head. But
Yeah.
at first she denied it was even happening. Then she said, yes, it's happening. Then she said, we're directing the police to, not engage. And then she denied just saying that. And then she said that there was no real problem. We don't need any help. There's no National Guard. We don't need National Guard. And then she issued a curfew because there's obviously no problem, right? And in the press conference said there was hundreds, not just a few, but hundreds of stores that got looted. Now you're really sending a strong message against tyrannical government by looting stores. That really sends a strong message. But then later denied that was even happening. And then at the same, while all this is going on, they're like, where's the National Guard here to help us? So there's a lot of mixed signals. And it's real stupid on the face of it. For somebody looking into it on a TV level, depending on who you're listening to and what you're looking at, you're going to be gaslit for the most part into believing something's happening that's not. But
So
they then tied this into the No Kings movement. Now go back to that No Kings website right quick. I want to show you something.
It's very vague on. It doesn't really talk about. I guess we'll have to dig a little deeper into figuring
Okay,
out.
now look, are you on the No
this
Kings
thing.
website?
Yeah.
No King's daughter. Look at the partners.
Partners.
Go to the top. Look at partners.
Here we go.
Scroll down. Look at all of these people who are contributing money to this movement. Now,
yeah,
they claim to be grassroots. They're not organized, not funded.
Right.
Really? I mean, just look at the list of partners.
Yeah. This is a lot of organizations.
Now, it's notable that most of these organizations have ties to either the government funding groups, the nonprofit government groups, or Soros funding groups. Almost most of these are related to those two.
Yeah.
In some way, NGOs.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it's a lefty thing here.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a lefty thing. But
so Sam Tripoli, one of the comedians I follow, made a post that he was like, "This is very much as like the Bolsheviks."
Oh, it's very similar to the Bolsheviks. It's very similar to what the Germans did, or the brown shirts did, to get Hitler in power with the Reichstag fires. It's very similar. There's a lot of parallels that you could draw between both of those. Now, since most of these people have a Marxist bent,
yeah,
I would say that they lean in that direction. In fact, if you look at the mayor of LA and really dig into the history of her, she came up through her laurels claiming to be a Cuban Marxist. She really was sympathetic to the Cuban Marxist movement and thinks that they have a great system, and that, we need to really look at that for paralleling it inside of our own.
Yeah, I saw somebody doing an interview, and it was on the AM Wake Up show that I've started to listen to. And they were covering a story where a guy was going out and interviewing some of the people at the riots, and one of the guys was talking about how communism was great in the first 4 years, something like that. It was working out, but then, it all went bad after that. And
Communism always leads in socialism. Here's the thing. They come at it from socialist. They say socialism, and then it moves from socialism to communism. And they always talk about how great it is. But communism always winds up with a small group of oligarchs running the system. Always.
yeah,
History tells us this. And the thing about communism is that it's outside the purview of due process and law. So they just basically give an edict and they go out and do it.
Well, I read the Gulag. Well, I've read part of the Gulag Archipelago, and then recently read Michael Malice's The White Pill, and he goes into how the Bolsheviks took over and what they did to do all that, and all the starvation and all the murders and all that stuff. And there's not a good accounting of how many people got killed. But
it's interesting that you bring that up.
It's in the millions. It wasn't like a peaceful transition into communism.
The same thing happened with the Maoist revolution. There was millions killed.
Yeah.
In the Bolshevik revolution, you had Lenin leading the charge there. But there was this young buck that came up through the ranks.
Yeah,
and
Stalin.
Basically, Stalin, he was for all intents and purposes, a mafia gangster.
He was a goon,
operating out of Ukraine. And he would go on horseback with a group of people and extort people that were producing oil and big businesses and this and that and the other, and use violence to do it. And so Lenin recruited Stalin into his movement. Soon after the Bolshevik Revolution, Ukraine was subject to extreme measures where the people of Ukraine could not grow food for themselves. They had to grow it for the Communist Party. Yeah. And so you'd have the government would show up and take their entire harvest and leave them to starve. And because they had resisted, it was illegal for them to own food. They couldn't have firearms. They couldn't have any tools or implements that could be used as a defense mechanism. And so millions starved as a result. They would just as soon grab up the wheat and throw it in a vat and let it rot than to give it to the people.
Yeah, because you can't have private property if you're
right.
a communist.
Exactly. The communist thing, there is no privacy. There's no private property. You have no control over your destiny at all. When you come up through school, if you show a intellectual predication towards engineering, then you're going to be placed by the government in some factory somewhere. Engineering, you have no choice in the matter. And
I remember reading in the Gulag Archipelago specifically, Solzhenitsyn talked about how the engineers, if they didn't sign off on a project because it was like being hastily, like they wanted to rush a project and it was going to be dangerous, the engineers that were the older ones that were very brilliant that he talked about, they wouldn't want to go along with it, and so they got accused of wrecking, is what they called it, and they got either sent to the gulags or executed.
Right, that happened. I think, did that happen before or after the purge? Because they did a purge right when they got in office or closely thereafter when they gained power, where they took all the intellects and all of the scientists and all of the engineers, they gathered them up and either executed them or carried them to the gulag because they didn't want anybody thinking outside of their box. You know, they didn't want
Yeah.
anybody. They didn't want anybody intelligent enough to see through their stuff.
I'm not sure about the time frame when the thing with the
I'm not
wrecking
either.
happened with the engineers. I'd have to go back and reference the book,
Yeah,
but
but that did happen. I mean, they rounded up professors. They rounded up
the intellectuals, yeah,
intellectual people and sent them to gulags. Either that or put them on firing squads.
yeah.
And so
Yeah, there were
here's the
different
thing.
factions. There were the Mensheviks, which were the ones that wanted to do like a slow rollout of communism, I think. And then there
Mhm.
were the Bolsheviks, were the ones that wanted to do it quickly.
Immediate change, bam, just like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there were groups of anarchists and
It's amazing how they drag these people out of the woodworks.
there were different factions,
Yeah.
that were vying for power, really. Like,
Well, yeah, that's the key right there. You nailed it. You have different factions vying for power because they'll be the ones in control. They have the same ideology. It's just they have a different methodology about going about it, and they would they all have the same bent as far as the mindset goes about how to dominate and rule these people. It's just all about their method. It's kind of like Protestant and Methodist. They go to war and kill each other over a simple little thing about the same ideology. They have their own ideology. It's just a methodology about it makes them want to kill each other.
well, I also read that book, The Story of Nowhere, which talks about utopian visions and different people's utopian, visions, and they're always about forcing some idea of utopia on to other people, right?
If it was such a great utopia, everybody would sign on to it.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have to force it.
You'd naturally like want to go to that, right? Because it's just better. So
yeah.
So that that kind of goes into my philosophy. What I have come to is like we got to like build a parallel thing and then demonstrate how it's way better over here than it is over there. Like we got to like
That's kind of
build
what happened with the American
networks.
Revolution, if you think about it. The American Revolution happened, and then it built this parallel society that the rest of the world said, wait a minute. At least the citizens did. The citizens said, wait a minute. Why can't we be like that? And then when they tried to petition their own government to be that way, they found out that that was not a possibility where they were. And so they migrated here, which, listen, I have no trouble and no problem with migration. But what's been happening over the last 5-6 years is not a migration. This is, Trump characterized it as an invasion, and it basically is, because we live in a different society today. And what happened during all of that is you had these billionaires and these NGOs and these other groups and entities who were paying for bus transit and everything else to get all these people up here.
Yeah, like Catholic Charities, the UN, I think.
Well, yeah, the usual suspects. Now, Catholic Charities, I don't know about, but I do know that the UN was involved with the NGOs and billionaires like Gates and Soros and others. And, colloquial, we're told on the news, like with Fox, the controlled opposition, that these people are brought in for political purposes to tip the scales for elections. It's a lot deeper than that, because during this process of the last administration, a lot of prisons in South America were emptied out, and NGOs paid for airfare and bus fare to get them here. So, okay, you go to a government like Venezuela, and you say, what's the worst possible citizen that you have? We'll pay to bring them here.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. We had millions of them, and we also, because it was so loose, we now have terror cells all over the place, sleeper cells. We also have Chinese nationals all over the place. We have these wild, rampant criminals running around from MS-13 and cartels all over the place, and those are the ones taking the headlines. So this gets into the psyop part of it, because the psyop part of it is that you bring the criminals in to distract everybody against the foreign nationals that are in the country. That's part of it. That's one piece. As far as these riots go, there's a whole other psyop going on, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But
here's what I think is happening. Five times August, he's a musician, but he laid this out on Twitter. He said, "Let me guess, it starts in LA, then New York, then other major cities across the country. Then we're on lockdown again, and by July 4th, instead of celebrating Independence Day, people are in line for their government-issued Palantir digital ID chip," something like that.
He nailed it. I mean,
yeah.
It won't happen that fast. But the July 4th thing is a significant date because it's symbolic of the freedoms that we enjoy. And so, you know, I keep hearing this July 4, July 4, July 4. You know, interestingly enough, and I'm going to throw this out here, it's a side thing, but during the COOF, when it first came up, I went and did a patent search. Started looking at patents. I found one patent, and then it referenced another one. I went and looked at it, went down the line. It goes all the way back to at least 2000. Now, it may stop there. I don't know. But at least that far back where they started research. Interestingly enough, the year that it broke out, the year before, I mean, like 8 months back, the patent was issued for the national patent, or the international patent. I'm sorry. The international patent was issued on July the 4th.
Okay.
And so I found that to be interesting because it was later used to try to lock down freedoms and this, that, and the other. And I thought, isn't it interesting that they issued the patent on the 4th and that they openly talk about it being issued on the 4th and this. And then when you start looking at all these kind of movements and stuff, interestingly enough, you'll find this 4th pattern over and over and over. So, you know, right now, what we're seeing with these riots is that they're using fireworks that were issued for July 4th in the riots. They're taking these mortar shells that are supposed to be used for the big fireworks, and somehow they got redirected to some of these groups, and they've been threatening to fire them at these buildings and at the police and this, that, and other. So you're going to take a instrument used to celebrate the 4th, and you're going to foment instability with the riots with it, using it. And they actually, several states actually passed, and it may even be federal at this point, but they passed a thing saying it was a federal offense for a citizen to show up at a protest with one of these mortar shells designated for the 4th.
Just showed up.
It's an outright assault on the liberties of the country is what it is.
Yeah, I very much see it as the Hegelian dialectic, the problem, reaction, solution. Yeah, and just like what happened when the communists took over, it's like all these people were executed after they helped bring about the
Well, yeah.
revolution.
And that's what these idiots at like MSNBC and Rachel Maddow and all these people don't understand. As soon as their usefulness is over with, they'll be
Bye.
dealt with.
Yeah,
So when your usefulness is over with, you're dealt with. You're gone.
right.
Because they can't have people who create sedition in the population.
Well, they simply know too much.
They simply know too much. Now
they knew the history. It's like a mafia hit, or it's like a mafia, like, you don't want to leave any witnesses. You know what I'm saying? Let's take care of these
that's
witnesses.
exactly right. I mean, you nailed it.
Yeah.
See if I can change the color of this light. My goodness, it's just red as crap. It's even more red.
Some red light therapy.
There we go. No, I've got one of these little ring lights, but it's I turned off the ceiling fan earlier because we had the stuttering video.
Well, it's still doing it for some reason. Hopefully it's clean on the stream, but I'm not, it's still like popping in and out, but we roll with it.
Yeah, we roll with it. I'm used to stupid stuff like that. So
yeah.
Getting technical glitches.
Yep. The technocrats. Speaking of the technocrats, there's Bilderberg going on right now.
Yes, and do you know who the primary guests are?
I know Peter Thiel's on there.
Yeah, he's only one.
Yeah.
All of the heads of the big companies that produce AI are there. Amazing. Yeah. What a coincidence.
No way.
It is. That gets into what I was saying earlier about it being a threefold or fourfold operation. I'm sure it's even deeper than that, but just from what I can see, number one, it's gaslighting the public, trying to get them to believe something that's not. And number two, it's trying to set up a scenario where they can create a martyr for the cause. So they're deliberately trying to create a scenario where somebody gets killed or this, that, and other they don't care about people getting killed, but the person has to get killed under the conditions that they can capitalize on, that they can benefit from. Number three is the false flag. They set up conditions where a false flag had happened to create the situation I just described. And then number four is a distraction for the big, beautiful bill. We got to get the bill passed. We got to have the bill passed because the big, beautiful bill, it's beautiful. I'm telling you, you've seen nothing like it. It's got to be passed.
Recognize this guy's name, Albert Bourla, the Pfizer CEO guy.
So the thing about the big, beautiful bill is
so big.
So big, you're not going to believe it. You're not going to believe how big and beautiful it is. Anyway, the problem with this thing, and they're taking on the skeptics of the bill in the format of and this is element 5, of the financing, the monetary side of it. They come out and say, well, you're increasing the debt ceiling, you're increasing spending, this, that, and other. But I heard today, interestingly enough, the Republican pundit guy was defending it, saying, yeah, well, we just got to pass the bill because in August, the administration has this other policy that's coming down that's going to slash government spending.
Slash it hard.
So immediately I thought of Walmart Black Friday sale, right? where what they do is they raise the price of products, and then they do the Black Friday sale where they slash the prices, and it's the same price. Right? So we got that going on. But the main thing that concerns me is the AI side of it, where it gives them blanket immunity just the way they did with COVID and the way they did with flu shots and others back in the day, where they gave them blanket immunity to create the product and said you will not be held responsible in any way. Now you say, well, what's the harm in that? There's plenty of harm in that, because you have identity problems. You have problems with AI flagging people for crimes they didn't commit. You have AI, and this is the most egregious part of it, the health side of it, because AI will then flag people who are unvaccinated, and then it'll be one of these things where you're like a social credit score, where all of a sudden you can't get credit, or you're buying a car and all of a sudden you're denied, or the tax revenue people come after you, or your mortgage company says we got to be paid in full right now.
Right.
There's just a whole host of things that is really detrimental in that the way it's set up. You can't give, and it's not spelled out to where it's one company. It's spelled out so that the technology itself is immune from prosecution. So you could have the Justice Department using AI to build a case against you, and it's totally immune. You could have, the list goes on and on and on and on. It's really designed for the purposes of this control grid that we've all heard about for years and years and years and years. This is it's not the implementation of it, because we already had that with Google. We've got it with Amazon. We've got it with OpenAI. We've got it with Palantir. We've got it with dozens of companies. This is the legalization of it. This makes it legal for them and makes them immune from any retribution for it. And that's the main thing. It's a shell game. I don't care about their shell game with the money. They're going to do that anyway.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You can go back 20 years and look at the doggone bills and stuff, and they shell game it all the time about the money. Sure, there's people skimming and getting rich and doing this kind of thing, but it doesn't go as deep as this does. The closest thing that we had was like I said, the immunity for the vaccines and things. This is that on steroids, because it's going to tie into your ability to get credit. It's going to tie into your ability to live your life. It's going to tie into your health. It's going to tie into your insurance, your health for Obamacare, because all of a sudden you're going to be required to take these shots, and you're going to have a card or a digital ID that shows that card. And if you don't have it, the AI is going to flag you for it. And it's not going to be any politician's fault. It's going to be the AI's fault.
Mm-hmm.
So they're shifting the blame for their globalist agenda. The stuff that, what was his name? Aaron Russo did that movie, Fascism, Freedom to Fascism.
America, Freedom to Fascism.
Yeah. He mysteriously died right after that. But he talked about similar things, but he was really focused in on the illegality of income taxes in the IRS. But this is, he talked about during that about how they really have a desire to digitize your money so that they can control what you spend it on and take it away if they don't like what you're doing. It's social credit score, same thing like they do in China.
Right.
So once this bill passes, you'll start to see people getting denied credit. You'll see people denied transportation, all over AI algorithms. They'll be denied health care. They'll be required health care. It's a disastrous scenario.
Yeah, so try to raise the alarm bells as much as possible about all this rollout of the AI. And if there's anybody working on the inside, man, hopefully you have a change of
this is
heart.
like step 3 of 4.
Hopefully you have a change of heart and maybe become a whistleblower. We did see you shared that with me. There was a whistleblower from Palantir that came out not too long ago. Maybe
and there's another whistleblower from OpenAI that came out, but they don't get any press, obviously.
Yeah.
And now we're also going to get into the area where dissenters will have AI evidence generated against them. So you'll have people, presenting with cases that where they said things they didn't, and then you'll have to try to prove that they didn't say it. Good luck with that. I don't know how they're gonna, once you get to that level, you can't discern reality from fiction, and that's the point.
Yeah. I was listening to T. Snyder talk about that on the AM Wake Up podcast, talking about how at one point it'll be like you have these contacts or something, and then you can perceive someone else. You could like mute them if you didn't want to listen to them, or completely change their personal appearance, and no reality will be nothing. All this perception filter.
Look, this is what I was talking about last time about how an AI system will eventually interface with your biology, because it's about creating reality inside biome. Once they get to that point, that's another really disturbing part of this bill, is that all of that experimentation, you thought COVID was bad.
Right.
Wait till they start experimenting on large swaths of population with biointerface nanoparticles. And they got immunity from the law, because that kind of stuff, it's coming. As a matter of fact, I would argue it's already here. But right now, what they're trying to do is pass this bill to legitimize it. And I've seen that pattern too in lawmaking stuff. They'll go out and they'll do experimental things, hypothetical experimental technologies. They'll build it up, and then they'll have to find a way to legitimize the existence of it. And so they'll work that into a bill somewhere so that it has to be part of national security or something, in order to legitimize it. But yeah, play this video right here.
Yeah, you sent me this one earlier.
It's one thing to criticize your former employer. It's taboo to do that. But to criticize an employer that also owns extremely lethal technologies and surveillance technologies that are highly invasive and used in war zones is something else entirely.
It's 2025. We're all kind of used to government surveillance. The idea that we're all being watched all the time and don't own our own personal data has become normalized.
Stop
We're
right
also
there.
used to the
Stop right
military
there. Just
spending
stop that.
vast amounts.
Think about that statement.
Yeah, our personal data.
I'm an old fogey, right? But I remember when people were saying that's completely stupid to believe that that'll ever be a reality.
Robbie, every new thing that happens, people are just like, yeah, I'm just going to go along with it because it's too hard to go against it. Like,
Yeah.
that's how it's just more and more like gradually, hey, now we're implementing this. And if there's no resistance, okay.
Yeah.
Now let's give you this, no resistance. Okay, now I'll give you this.
But it goes with that natural law thing that we were talking about where, since they're not objecting too hard, that's tantamount to
your
permission.
agreement.
Move to the next step.
Right.
And we see that over and over and over with these types of organizations now. You can argue all day long about who they are and where they're from, but I've got a pretty good idea myself what those folks are about and where they're from. And they don't involve the average people. They involve the upper elite people. They involved the military industrial complex and the intelligence agencies and the banking system, because you have to have all of those elements in place to make this a reality.
Well, Robbie, have you heard of the book, The Witness Tree?
No. Send me a link. But I mean, listen, don't quit playing that video because it needs to be, people need to see that. Go back to that. Don't let me, in my interruption, do that. Let's do the witness tree after this.
Okay. Let's go right back to that. Yeah, this is pretty key here.
Of our money on just a few giant defense contractors. But one tech company wants to change both of those things and become the ultimate military contractor and the ultimate arbiter of all of our data.
Palantir is here to disrupt
Over the pyramid.
institutions we partner with, the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them.
Check out Palantir shares surging 22% after the company cited a boom in demand for its AI software from the U.S. government.
We're doing it. We're doing it. And I'm sure you're enjoying this as much as I am.
Palantir, a tech company based here in Denver, claims they can revolutionize government systems with their data analysis software, newly powered by artificial intelligence. They've been hired by the Department of Defense, the FBI, local police departments, and even the IRS and Wendy's to take in the information those organizations collect even more information, and use that data to draw conclusions.
It can be used to completely reconfigure organizations' ontology, its reality, what systems matter, what information matters, what processes matter, how they are structured, what biases are introduced at each of those stages.
We talked to a former Palantir employee, dug into decades of research, and listened to hours of Alex Karp's own words to unwrap the layers of Palantir's carefully cultivated sales pitch, how they capitalize on fear, uncertainty, and unrest.
I don't think in win-lose. I think in domination. This is a company built for bad times. Bad times mean strong finances internally. Bad times are very good for Palantir because we build products that are robust, that are built for danger.
Let's rewind.
Bad times. This company is built for bad times. So
Exactly.
yeah, that was.
And the thing about it is that these groups of people that finance Palantir, they foment and create bad times.
Right. Yep.
So, you have to look at this with a discerning eye, I guess, because, like I've said a million times, this is not new. This is something that's been going on for a long time, and this is like the dream product of the folks that would like to sit at the top of the pyramid and run everything. Now,
Yep.
it's my opinion that they are deluding themselves with this technology because they believe that whoever controls the best, quote, the best AI controls everything. Well, my research shows me that AI don't work like that. Now, we've always had,
Well, Robbie, it's actually a room full of Indians. Did you see that? Did you see that story?
I hadn't seen that.
Microsoft got busted for one of their AI products being like a bunch of Indians.
Yeah, pull that up and let's see that.
Here we go. Builder.ai's virtual assistant Natasha was actually engineers manually coding customer requests. Revealed one site AI startup backed by Microsoft filed for bankruptcy after it was revealed that its so-called artificial intelligence was actually hundreds of human workers in India pretending to be chatbots.
Okay, I can understand that.
No,
That could be true. That could be true.
I've joked with my buddies about this. It's like when you're interacting with AI, it's probably a bunch of idiots in an office building somewhere.
Well, I mean, look, all the search engines have an AI function now. They put it in there, but I want to point out that AI is nothing new.
Right.
I did a deep dive into this here a while back, and it dates back into the 60s. The algorithms, and I know you and I talked about this, the algorithms sometimes appear to be sentient, but are not. And I think some of that's going on here with this. They're trying to pass on, because look, AI is the big money boom right now. It's the big gold mine.
Yeah, that's what this is saying.
And so, you're going to have people faking it and put it in.
Yeah.
But
try to scam investors.
My big question was at the beginning is, why would you put AI out into the public that could be very disruptive like that? Usually, from my research anyway, any kind of technology like this, and I mean any, is usually in the public sector, is usually decades behind the military industrial complex sector.
Yeah.
I recently saw a podcast where a guy was claiming that all stuff for medical research was being produced by DARPA and sent out to the medical association and distributed to the doctors and hospitals. And along with data about drugs. And then they would go in, and the drug company would then create whatever documentation they needed to get it past FDA. But that at least 90% of all drugs were created by DARPA and handed to the pharmaceutical industry. So you have to ask yourself, why in the hell would DARPA want to do that? And the answer is, as Sherry Tenpenny came out and said the other day, all drugs and vaccines are now switching over to mRNA. All. not some, all.
Man,
So you go to the doctor to get a steroid shot for, like I did last month or a few months ago for pneumonia. You're going to get shot up with an mRNA agent, and a wide portion of those are shedding the type that sheds, so that if you're around anybody else, they're going to pick it up. And not only that, but these particular things self-replicate in perpetuity. They do not ever stop replicating.
oh yeah, the self-replicating AI or the
Self-replicating vaccines.
little
that,
nanobots or something. What? Gosh, I saw some video on that not too long
Well,
ago.
it's self-replicating. It's not nanobots. They're not claiming it's nanobots, but I'm sure there's a nanobot application in there. It's a self-replicating mRNA scenario where the DNA of the body produces a virus that replicates out to an individual next to you, and then they get the virus and their DNA starts replicating the virus. You have to ask yourself, what good is this in society? It's supposed to be, they colloquially called it back in the COVID era, they called it the, what was it? The contagious vaccine, I think is what they called it. In other words, you would be around somebody and they're going to get vaccinated whether they like it or not. You could be standing next to somebody in line at Walmart, and they're going to be shedding off these these viral particles that are going to integrate into your body. That's going to create this in your body. Why would anybody want to do that?
Right?
You know, the only reason I can come up with is biological control.
Well, part of the whatever the Bilderberg recent meeting.
This is where the AI comes in.
Part of the agenda is depopulation.
If you don't think the AI plays a part in that, you're deluding yourself.
Right.
Because the AI is there to direct that traffic.
Yeah, I think it is, like we're talking about, it's just another easier way to hold kind of like a total control over a population. You know, you can get some kind of technology in them and start doing things.
Well, they're throwing these things out there, and it goes into Nietzsche. You know, that which does not kill you makes you stronger. Well, if they kill off half the population in order to get the population they want, not our fault, it's the AI, right? That's kind of where we're headed with this thing. Yep. And that's the it's kind of a darker side of it, but it'll start out as AI controlled surveillance to thwart terrorism and to round up these cartel people and this, that, and the other. That's the way it's going to start out. And then it's going to expand from there. So now I'm not defending these people at all. They need to be rounded up. They need to be carted off, put in jail, whatever. If you're a human trafficker, you're a person that's trafficking fentanyl and heroin drugs and this, that, and other, and you're wrecking society as a cartel member, yeah, you need to be targeted and arrested by the government. But by using that as it's the Hegelian dialect. You use that, it's a problem, reaction, solution. You use that as a way to get a system in place to later down the road control the rest of us. And it's incrementalism on top of that. So we've seen this over and over and over and over and over. I don't know how else to say it.
Yep.
And this stuff that's going on now with this riots and the big beautiful bill that we have to pass. We got to pass the bill.
Well,
it's so beautiful. Everybody's going to appreciate it. Everybody, you're not going to believe how beautiful it is. I mean,
Rand Paul and Thomas Massey didn't get invited to the White House barbecue because
they did not. They're getting a lot of flack from it. Even the Republican Party.
They get invited to the barbecue, man.
Yeah.
Y'all can't come to the barbecue.
But I looked into what they were talking about, and both of them are talking about the budget. Yeah. And that has nothing to do with why I oppose it. Because the budget's a wash. That's gonna happen anyway.
So
it's the damn AI.
In order to pull off this AI control grid crazy thing, they're gonna need the power grid, and maybe they can shut the power grid on and off. But I really do think we're moving into the brave new world future where you're controlled by your comforts. They don't want you to think about it too much. Just let us do our things in the background and run our algorithms, and your reality and perception will be controlled. Don't think about it too much.
Do not adjust your television set.
Do not adjust your TVs, your digital screens.
Yeah. Listen, you just hit up on something though. You're talking about all of these power stations. The AI bill will make immunity for those power stations that pollute the area around the people. In other words, they have a data center where there's an AI. They can set up a power station that's throwing off all kind of radiation. People could be dying, this, that, other. Total immunity. We're sorry, it's not us. It's AI.
Yeah. So what did we talk about a little while ago? It's about it's basically this. It's this right here.
David Lightman was a master at computer games, a fast thinker.
Oh, David! Maybe you could tell us who first suggested the idea of reproduction without sex.
Your wife?
Get out,
and a promising student.
That was good.
Hi.
With an electronic twist.
Those are your grades?
Yeah. I don't think that I deserved an F. Do you?
You could go to jail for that.
Only if you're over 18. This computer company is coming out with these amazing new games in a couple of months. And I want to play those games. Wow.
What?
We got something.
He found the right code word to play the game.
We're in.
But it was the wrong computer.
Shall we play a game? How could I ask you that?
How about mobile, thermo, nuclear war?
Fine.
All right. What the hell? The trajectory headings for multiple impact re-entry vehicles.
How's that mean?
I don't know, but it's great.
All stations, this is Crystal Palace.
Wonder if I should use my subs.
22 Typhoon-class submarines departing Petropavlovsk.
What in the hell's happening here? Oh my God.
Shall we play?
I have 7, correction 8. That's 8 Redbirds. Get on the stack. Tell them to flush the bombers.
Russians are still denying everything, sir.
Who are you working with?
Nobody.
Fight
don't have to leave here.
Today we have Soviet missile warning.
Placed under arrest pending indictment for espionage.
Confidence is high. I repeat, confidence is high.
Cobra is this an exercise?
Negative, this is not an exercise. Meet President on the horn.
It's still playing the game. It's gonna start a war.
Close up the mouth.
Is this a game or is it real?
War games. Playing soon. At a theater near you.
Shall we play?
Oh man, I thought I was gonna.
Well, what that thing does not show is at one point it says the best way to win the game is to not play it.
Yeah, I was hoping I would say that.
Yeah, I like that game, but look how old that is.
1980s, yeah.
And so
Matthew Broderick.
talk about, we've talked about this a dozen times about social programming, about how they normalize things, about how, how it without this kind of stuff, the video that you played earlier about how, well, it's normal for us not to have,
any privacy.
That would not be possible without these types of shows and games and movies coming out saying, in the future, this is the way it'll be, and everybody's going, oh, bull crap, there's no way. I'm so glad that's fiction.
Right. It's kind of getting us used to the idea of it so when it happens, we're not so shocked by it.
I'm going to run the restroom right quick, but yeah, you get the idea of what's going on here.
All right.
I think the same thing is happening now.
I tend to agree. So, let's see here. Let's go. While Robbie's running off there, I do want to play a little bit of this and talk to you guys about the book, The Witness Tree. Because it's a book that you cannot get a hold of the physical copy of. So check this out.
Isn't it funny how things like that happen where you just can't get copies anymore?
You cannot get a physical copy of this book.
This is
I searched for it on eBay, on all the bookstores. Amazon doesn't have it. Maybe there's some place where somebody's selling some copies, but
he must be part of the disinformational dozen. I mean, get rid of the dirty dozen, the disinformation dozen.
Well, Candace Owens recently covered this, and so Candace has a pretty large audience, and it's pretty interesting that she was able to get this out there. But just here's the background on why they might not want this book to be out to everybody.
Yeah. I think the nail in the coffin for most people over the last couple of years has been Joe Rogan. He's got such a huge audience.
He tells about how Reuven Shiloah used his knowledge of those secret Nazi connections to blackmail Nelson Rockefeller into creating the State of Israel.
So Reuven Shiloah is the Mossad, the first Mossad director of Israel.
It's interesting they had Mossad before they had the state.
So this Reuven Shiloah guy talked to John Loftus and told him about this and how they were blackmailing the Rockefellers to say that, hey, you guys were funding the Nazis, and if you don't want to get that out there, then you're gonna get some votes for us in the UN so that we can make Israel a state. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, the Rockefellers are they're no saints themselves. They try to portray themselves as saints, but they're not.
Oh yeah, absolutely not.
You know, they're involved in a lot of stuff. And you know, the thing I was trying to bring up last time that I couldn't think of was the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations. That's a Rockefeller Foundation thing. And most administrations have at least 3 cabinet members from the CFR. Up until Trump, 80% were CFR. Now, some of those were Goldman Sachs people. It's interesting to me that you have this Rockefeller Foundation group of people directed or put into the cabinet, and banking moguls put into the cabinet, and they're the guys that are directing policy for everything, for national defense and the whole 9 yards. How does that come to be? It's what you have to ask yourself. And it comes to be because
man, every time you click that pen, it's really loud in the mic.
There it is. There's the pen. Is it super poppy on the mic?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll quit doing it.
It's
a nervous habit, man. I mean, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't enjoy sharing this shit because every time I do, I suffer consequences for it. Most of the time, I wind up having problems.
Right.
After these kind of things, and so, I don't care about myself. I don't give a crap. Okay.
Right.
My body's washed up. I've done this kind of thing. I'm old. I don't want to put this on my family. And
right.
For anybody that thinks that this is some sort of game, or that we're just doing it for clicks or whatever, no.
Yeah, just trying to get.
I'm doing this because I don't want this shit to happen for my grandchildren.
Right. Yeah.
Now, you may see a public persona change in the future if something gets blown out where I'm threatened with my livelihood or something, but that's the modus operandi.
Yep.
And I did it again. Damn it, I did it twice while I said that shit. I guess it's the click sound, but I can't hear it, but you can. Shit, I'm sorry about that.
Well, Robbie, do you want to wrap up for tonight? Because
let's wrap up, man, because I'm a little bent out of shape, and I don't want to go further than where I am, and I'm pissed off about this whole situation.
Yeah.
Because it's been so predictable over the years, and I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm going out of bounds.
Well,
I have had, like I said before, I have had a thing where I had a security clearance, and we've had some uptick in activity lately.
All right.
Let me just end it there.
Let's sign off for the night.
Yeah.
We'll catch y'all later.
All right, man.